another movie came to mind, though, well, like just comparison's sake, though it wasn't like they were vastly different in some regards, was Napoleon for some
I
reason.
was just thinking that. I was thinking that too.
I just was like, maybe, but I think it's just because this movie, unlike that one, I feel like characters had more compelling reasons, like, to root for them. Like, there was more nuances to all these different characters that were inhabiting these different scenes, this life, this world that we're being introduced to. And so it's like, you're not given, like, stoic characters. You're given depth and personality to each person as you come across them. So it was like...
Right.
So, like, so the main character, like, he has, like, motivation. He has nuance. He cares about certain people. He has dreams and desires. So it's like he's also, like, he's arrogant in some regards. Like, he's just, like, he very much, like, hypes himself up, his company up. He's, like, the Italian way, all this other stuff. But it is also, like, he's also willing to take the blame. He's also willing to do what needs to happen to advance his goals and whatever. So it's like he's not willing. It's not that he's too prideful to take a low blow or something. He's willing to, but he's also very much like a self-promoter, I guess. I guess maybe not he is a self-promoter, but I don't know if that's a flaw. But it's but like he has characters. Like it's not like a perfect character. Like he has some issues, and even the affair that's introduced very early on, where it's like, okay, clearly he's like not faithful to his wife. So.
Yeah, and so I pulled up my thoughts on Napoleon when you said that, because I was thinking it's very true that this is also at least a pseudo-biographical story similar to Napoleon. They're both following historical characters. Both of these characters are very arrogant. They have their own things they're trying to fight for, and they want control and power in some ways. But I would say that this movie stands far and above Napoleon in my mind.
Yes.
Even though I personally love war movies, I think that I get engrossed with those a lot more easily than, say, something like this. But at the same time, I would watch this before I watched Napoleon any day. And it's interesting to be like, okay, so why is that the case? Is it the lack of focus that Napoleon had? Because he was still compellingly flawed, and maybe we'll get to character arcs.
I think overall, like, well, I mean, not in every way, and we'll get to this a little bit, but I think this movie maybe had a little bit more focus, perhaps, than the other. Like, not only was it compelling characters, but because it was focusing on a snapshot of his life during like a particular like week or a few weeks of his life, it's like there was more cohesion to what was happening. Like there was like, you kind of got a better sense of what was happening, I guess. Whereas with Napoleon, it was jumping all over the place, and it was very disjointed. Like it was very, it just wasn't as interesting, I guess. I don't know how else to put it.
Right. Well, it's like, let's just draw a quick comparison here, and this is going to do a broad summary of the story overall. Ferrari, so he has his personal life, right? He has his business life, and he has like the racing life. And if you were to compare those to the personal life of Napoleon, his political life, and then the war that he was always involved in, you have three distinct aspects of his life as well. And the question is, why was that feeling so disjointed in Napoleon compared to Ferrari? And I think that it boils down to having a locus of focus. There we go. Let's hocus pocus this. And that was specifically the business being in jeopardy, right? Everything in Ferrari focuses around this idea that he is going to lose the company. It's going to go bankrupt. And so it's not that the romantic life of Ferrari was not important. In fact, it very much was, because of how the business was structured and the fact that his wife held half of the shares of the company, right? And he was having this affair at the same time. Or let's just say the racing aspect, because the publicity of the race was going to directly tie to him being able to get support to keep the company afloat, right? And so all of those things were constantly being a reminder to you as the audience that all of this was connected and all of this was important to achieve an ultimate end. Whereas I think in Napoleon, each area was so separate that each area could have been its own movie or
Mhm.
could have been the central focus with the sidelines, and you weren't really clear which one was the central focus. So, yeah, I think that that's just a a lesson in being focused. I don't like you have to have a thing that the story's about, and when the story's about too
Yeah.
much, it's not about anything. And that's what we saw in
Yeah.
Napoleon, and this is the perfect counter to that because they very much didn't do that, and they did it well at keeping everything cohesive.